Cohen's here. I'm joined by PFL analyst, PFL commentator, and first ballot MMA Hall of Famer, Randy the Natural Couture. Randy, always a pleasure to get your time. How are things for you today?
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Obviously, we're one portion through of the PFL season. We've obviously had the first round of fights. Was there a particular standout from the first three regular season cards?
Oh, so many good fights. There was some fantastic fights. That Jindrova knockout certainly stuck out to me. That was very surprising, and I'm a big fan of Jindrova. I think she's a great competitor, and to see her get caught like that was a big kick. And man, the sound that made was unbelievable. There was just so many good fights in the first half of the regular season. Hard to pick out, my favorite, because there were that many good ones. But it was nice to sleep in my own bed here in Vegas and get to work from here. Obviously, the next three shows are going to be in Atlanta here in June for the second half of the regular season. So, and again, the matchups are incredible. There's going to be some amazing fights in the second half.
100%. I want to talk about two of the big notice signings for this regular season, which was obviously Shane Burgos and Thiago Santos, both moving over from top ranked UFC contenders over to the PFL. What did you make of their initial fights in the PFL and the fact that it didn't go their way in the PFL debut?
Well, what I like is that the PFL doesn't protect anybody. Those are huge signings for them, and they threw them right in the mix with their top competitors. And that's what the PFL is all about. It's a meritocracy. Your destiny's in your own hands, but you're going to have to go up in that cage and execute and score points and do what you need to do to win. There was some amazing fights there. AOC, Aubin Mercier he's such a cerebral fighter, and I don't think anybody expected him to win that fight. And he did exactly. It may have not have been the most exciting thing to watch, but it was exactly what he had to do to win that fight. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about: scoring those points and getting the W.
100%. In terms of the PFL season format, it's felt like since PFL's inception, Kayla has been the face of the PFL season. Obviously, things didn't go away last year, but she has been the face of the tournament, if you like. With Kayla stepping away and now going over to the pay-per-view portion of the PFL division, who do you think is most likely to replace Kayla as the face of the regular season?
Gosh, I don't think Kayla's ever going to go away as one of the figureheads for this promotion. I mean, they built a huge foundation and a huge star in Kayla through the PFL. I've been very excited about Clay Collard. He is one of the most exciting fighters to watch, and just his story and everything that comes along with him and the way he competes. I think anybody's going to want to pay to watch him, or you're not going to have to pay to watch him because he's in the regular season. It's free on ESPN. But I think he's going to step up. Brendan Loughnane is another one that's just articulate, passionate athlete, done an amazing job, and another amazing competitor. We're seeing Bubba Jenkins come into his own now and really kind of become a very, very well-rounded, humbler, more exciting fighter to watch. And I think any of those guys, Ante Delia's back, Bruno Capelos is back. I mean, there's a lot of marquee or potential marquee names and guys right there. Obviously Larissa Pacheco is going to come back and see if she can defend. She's been on the tear. She made 145. That was a question. Was she going to be able to make the lower weight? And she did that. She had some troubles in previous seasons making 155. So I was happy to see her, make the 145-pound mark. LeBrock and some of these other females in those divisions, obviously with the big knockout against Jindrova was very exciting. And now she's facing Pacheco next. I mean, that's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be amazing. So, I mean, I love what the PFL does. They're not, you better strap them on tight, because you were going in and you were going to do battle with everybody and anybody they throw at you if you want a shot at that championship.
No, 100%. Obviously, I would be remiss if not mentioning the big news that broke yesterday of Francis Ngannou signing with the PFL. I can see the smile on your face there, Andy. Presumably a piece of information that you may have been sitting on for the last couple of weeks and months, and maybe you knew prior to the rest of the world. What was your reaction to the news?
Actually, I think, certainly here at Extreme Couture, we were all hopeful You know, it was a lot of irons in the fire. You had a lot of people chasing him and a lot of options. And the PFL stepped up and threw their hat in the ring. And I think they did it in a way that was really too attractive for Francis to turn down, making him the chairman of PFL in Africa to develop talent and the sport in his homeland where he's from. And that's such an amazing part of his story and his journey to his championship title and who he is now as a mixed martial artist. So, and I think it was way more about that than the money. I'm sure the UFC will try to make him out to be some selfish, greedy athlete that wanted more money, but it really wasn't about that. It was about the advocacy and the voice for the athletes. And the PFL has no ego involved there. They want to do their best to take care of these athletes. And so they stepped up in a big way. And Francis stuck to his guns and he got all the things that he wanted. Who in the hell has ever asked for $2 million minimum for their opponent? Whoever steps in that cage to fight him, nobody has done that. That is a brilliant move. And if that doesn't get all the free agency in the heavyweight divisions across the board's attention, I don't know what will. So I just think that's a remarkable thing. And hats off to the PFL for stepping up the way they have.
No, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, you have quite a unique opinion on this, given that you have your own contract troubles and in a similar time in your career all those years back, and obviously you are privy to the conversation, or presumably privy to some conversations, given your closeness to Extreme Couture and the guys down there, obviously where Francis trains. Of all the aspects that came out in this contract, which was, I think it's fair to say, a groundbreaking deal in the sport, do you think there was one
I think,
particular aspect that pushed Francis over the edge?
well, I think that Africa portion is certainly the thing that probably pushed Francis over the edge. You know, he has a love and affinity for where he came from, and he has not forgotten the struggles and the people that are still there to this day struggling. So he wants to create opportunity, the similar opportunities that he's had, and hopefully create a little easier, better path to getting there, to getting to a championship, to getting to be a professional mixed martial artist for a lot of people in the continent of Africa and certainly Cameroon, where he came from. So I think that was a huge factor for him. He's a magnanimous person. It's not about being flashy or being rich or any of that other stuff. He's trying to do the best he can for the people that he loves and where he came from.
You mentioned the 2 million payout for his opponents as well. I think a lot of question I've seen on people's minds is, who will Francis fight next? If you were in your prime, Randy, and you were fighting in another organization, how enticing do you think that 2 million would be to either fight out your contract or to do whatever you can to get over to the PFL and get that matchup?
Yeah, well, that would definitely get my attention. That's more money than I made in any one of my fights in my entire career. So, I think this is your profession. You're building a brand in this sport. You're crazy if you're not looking at that and thinking about that as an opportunity for sure.
How big of an impact do you think this will have on the sport as a whole? Like, do you think we will look back on this in 10, 15, 20 years to come, and this, like yesterday, will have been a historic day for the sport to grow?
I'm hoping there's a ripple effect from this and that some of the other promotions, are forced to step up and change the way they're doing business. I honestly don't think that's going to happen. I think we still have a long way to go there. Certainly on the side of fighter pay, creating a fighters association so that we all have a voice as a regulatory body in the rules and the way we're governed as athletes. Every other sport in our society has that, and we don't have that. There's no transparency in our sport at this point, and that's a huge problem. Now the PFL is doing their best to make some waves there and do things differently and take care of the fighters better, give them a voice, give them some advocacy and all those things that Francis was trying to get with the UFC that they weren't willing to give. So hopefully we can continue to set the example for the sport, and hopefully we are able to amend the Ollie Act, create some regulation, create some transparency in our sport, eliminate some of the very restrictive contracts that a lot of these fighters have to deal with. Hopefully find a way to create some retirement for some of these fighters, certainly some health care while they're putting their bodies on the line and competing. Those are things that we have to continue to move forward and strive for, because we don't have any of that in the sport of mixed martial arts at this point.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. With that being said, there was obviously a massive fight on the table for him over in the UFC against John Jones. I think a fight that every fan of MMA wanted to see. Would it be fair to say, in your opinion, that that fight is now dead in the water? Do you think there is 0% chance that we will ever see that?
You know, John's still chirping about it. They're still at each other on Twitter and other social media platforms about that fight. And I think that's great. Obviously, the desire for both of them to mix it up. John's coming over the hump. You know, he just took 3 years off. He looked great against Cyril Gaines. You know, we'll see how he does against Stipe. Stipe's been out a little bit, but Stipe's a very formidable opponent and poses some serious problems for John. It'll be interesting to see how he does that. I know he's one of the athletes at the top, upper echelon in the sport that have been chirping about some of the fighter pay and some of the issues that we're experiencing in our sport. So I don't think it's dead in the water. I think it still has potential. I think John's still got some longevity left in his career, and we could see that fight happen somewhere down the road.
100%. Last one from me, Randy, because we obviously had a couple of PFL shows over in the UK last year, which we were all very glad for, obviously in Cardiff and London in August. We've obviously got the European League, which started in March over in Newcastle. Do you think there is a chance that the PFL regular season in 2023 could return to the UK, or is that just wishful thinking from a Brit?
No, I think it's possible for sure. I think we had an amazing experience last year with the 2 playoff fights that we did in Cardiff and in London. Obviously, laying that foundation and groundwork for fan base to continue to grow in the UK and in Europe in general. I think they just had their first show in Berlin. Obviously, the Newcastle show sold out, which is a great sign. You've got some amazing talent being developed and coming up. Obviously, Brendan Loughnane is leading that charge for sure. So I think that the future is very, very bright. This organization is exploding and changing things and doing things differently. And I think people are starting to recognize that now.
If there's one fight that people should tune in for on the second leg of the PFL's regular season, who would that be? Who is your one fight that people?
Man, I think that Pacheco matchup is going to be a barn burner. That is going to be an amazing fight.
I love it. Well, Randy, it is truly always a pleasure to get your time. It really was, and especially with the news that broke yesterday, to get a little bit of insight into the great mind of yours, and obviously the information that you have being so close to the situation. So thank you for your time as always, and I wish you all the success with your current endeavours with the PFL and outwards.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on, bud. Great to